In a forest where even the wind seemed to gossip, there lived a monkey who believed his mouth was his greatest gift. His name was Chiku, and he could talk faster than a monkey could steal bananas. He had an opinion about everything, advice for everyone, and a loud laugh that could scare birds out of trees. If a rabbit dug a small hole, Chiku would say, "Too shallow." If a deer ran too fast, he would say, "Too dramatic." If the moon rose quietly, he would say, "Not impressive enough." He was the kind of fellow who thought silence was only useful for sleeping and hiding from trouble. Not far from Chiku's branch lived an old tortoise named Talo. He was slow, wrinkled, and calm in a way that made the younger animals feel nervous. Talo did not waste words. He would nod, blink, and let the world finish speaking before he answered. The animals often teased him. "Why are you so quiet?" the parrot once asked. Talo smiled and said, "Because the forest already makes enough noise for all of us." The parrot had no reply for that, which bothered him for 3 days. One hot afternoon, while the animals were resting under the banyan tree, Chiku climbed to the highest branch and called out, "Listen, everyone, I have discovered something important. If danger comes, the smartest thing is to shout first and think later. That way, everyone knows you are brave." A few animals clapped politely, though mostly out of confusion. Talo opened one eye and asked, "And what if shouting only makes the danger notice you faster?" Chiku waved a hand. "Then you shout even louder." The rabbits whispered to each other. The crow tilted his head. Even the ants paused, as if to say, "This fellow may be entertaining, but he is not reliable." Not long after, the forest was troubled by a hunter's camp that had been built near the river. The hunters were not yet inside the forest, but their dogs barked day and night, and every creature became tense. One morning, Chiku spotted fresh footprints near the berry bushes. He gasped so loudly that a flock of birds burst from the trees like black fireworks. "Danger!" he screamed. "The hunters are coming! Run! Hide! Save yourselves!" His panic spread faster than fire in dry grass. The deer bolted, the rabbits scattered, the squirrels forgot where they had hidden their nuts. The monkeys chattered wildly from branch to branch, asking questions nobody could answer. In the middle of all that noise, Chiku kept shouting instructions that changed every second. "Hide in the hollow tree," he yelled. "No, wait, don't use that tree. Actually, everyone climb higher, or lower. No, higher again." The forest turned into a comedy of mistakes. One squirrel ran up a tree, then immediately down it. A goat hid behind a bush that was not large enough to hide a loaf of bread. A peacock tried to look invisible by standing still with his feathers spread out, which is not how invisibility works, but he tried with great confidence. Now Talo, meanwhile, had not moved much at all. He had only watched. He saw the footprints, the broken grass, and the direction of the wind. He noticed something Chiku had missed in his loud excitement. The tracks were not fresh enough to belong to hunters entering the forest. They were old, half-faded, and covered lightly with leaves. The dogs had barked, yes, but from the far edge of the camp, not close to the trees. Still, Chiku's shouting had already sent half the forest into chaos. Then came the real danger. Because everyone was running in different directions, the sound they made was so great that the hunters' dogs finally did turn toward the forest. Their ears lifted, their noses worked, their barking grew sharp. Now the danger was truly near. Chiku's heart dropped to his toes. He climbed a low branch and shouted even louder, "I knew it! I knew it! This is bad! Very bad! Extremely bad!" Talo raised his head slowly and spoke in a voice that felt softer than the shade. "Chiku, stop speaking for one moment." Chiku blinked. "Stop speaking? In a crisis?" "Yes," said the tortoise, "especially in a crisis." That sentence landed on the forest like a stone dropped into still water. Even the birds seemed to hold their breath. Talo moved toward the riverbank with unusual purpose. He did not call attention to himself. He did not announce plans. He simply looked at the wind, listened to the dogs, and led with quiet steps. The animals, exhausted by panic, followed him because he looked like a creature who knew where he was going. He brought them not to the hollow tree, not to the hills, but to the old reed bed near the river, where the ground was muddy and the tall reeds bent like whispering guards. There he signaled with his head for everyone to stay low and still. No one spoke, not the rabbit, not the peacock, not even Chiku. It was difficult for Chiku. Silence for him was like wearing shoes on his ears. He wanted to explain, to correct, to help by talking, but the tortoise's eyes told him something important. Now was not the time for noise. So Chiku shut his mouth, and for the first time in his life, he discovered that silence can feel heavy before it becomes wise. The hunters passed near the forest edge. Their dogs sniffed, barked once, then lost the scent in the wet river air. Because the animals had gone quiet and stayed hidden in the reeds, no extra sound gave them away. After a few minutes, the hunters moved on, grumbling to themselves about bad luck, while the forest remained still as a held breath. Only then did the animals begin to relax. The deer exhaled so hard that a frog jumped in surprise. The rabbit, still trembling, whispered, "Is it over?" Talo nodded, "For now." Chiku sat in the mud, his tail stained and his pride even more stained. He looked at the tortoise and scratched his head. "I made it worse, didn't I?" Talo did not laugh at him. That was what made his words kind. You wanted to help, but sometimes a loud mouth is like a drum in a sleeping house. It wakes fear before it wakes wisdom. Chiku tried to smile. "That is a very tortoise-like insult." Talo's mouth curved just a little, and yet you understood it. The monkeys giggled. Even the peacock gave a respectful bow, which was his version of applause. Chiku lowered his eyes. He was embarrassed, but not crushed. Something had changed in him. He thought words made him powerful. Now he understood that words without timing are only noise wearing a crown. From that day on, Chiku became different. He still joked, still talked, still made the forest laugh, because laughter has its own magic. But when trouble came, he learned to watch first, listen second, and speak only when his words could help. The animals noticed. They began to trust him more because he no longer filled every silence with himself. And strangely enough, the more Chiku learned to be quiet, the wiser he sounded when he finally did speak. Years later, the forest remembered the day of the hunters not because of the noise Chiku made, but because of the silence Talo kept. The old tortoise never boasted about it. He simply continued walking slowly, as if wisdom had always known it would arrive quietly. And if you ask the forest today what it learned, the trees will answer with rustling leaves, the river with its gentle flow, and the old tortoise's smile will say the rest. Sometimes the most powerful words are the ones you do not rush to say. Silence does not mean weakness. Silence can mean strength, patience, and a mind that sees farther than fear. Because in the end, a wise heart does not speak to fill the air. It speaks only when the truth is ready.